All right, so let's talk about how to optimize a cold outbound email campaign. So, over the last 5 years, we've generated about 10,000 leads for our clients, and we've taken a lot of companies that had zero pipeline, no leads coming in, to consistent 0.51% conversion out of cold contacts on a monthly basis. And then what we did a couple of years ago is we went back to those successful campaigns and said, look, why were these successful? Can we quantify this? What were those KPIs that led to a 0.5 to a 1% conversion rate? And just to give you some insight, that's about 5 to 10 SQLs being booked out of 1,000 cold contacts. And now once we broke this down, what we learned is there's these KPIs inside of an email campaign: open rates, response rates, and so on. And across the different industries that we worked with, all in B2B, we started to notice these trends. And then we quantify these KPIs leading up to that 0.51% conversion rate. And we realized most of the successful campaigns had these KPIs going for them. They had these numbers. So what we ended up doing is building out internal SOP for ourselves on how to optimize campaigns, right? On a weekly basis, if we're not getting a 0.5 to a 1% conversion rate, we have to go through this entire SOP to identify what the issue is. That's the first thing. And then based off that, there's a solution SOP to then fix that, right? This is what needs to be done or put in place for the following week to get that KPI on track. Now we have all this internally. We call it the red zone process. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and this is how we optimize internally. Our campaigns are clients' campaigns, but what I'm doing today is I'm simplifying that SOP, made it into a slide, making this video. I'm going to walk through it. So not only am I going to point out the different benchmarks for KPIs that you should be hitting, but also to the solutions if you're not hitting those. So I'm starting off easy here with, obviously, look, if your campaign's not running, you're not going to get any booked meetings, so run your campaign, right? Super simple. Starting off easy. But here's where it gets a little bit tougher. Open rates, right? What we noticed is that successful campaigns had at least a 40% open rate. Now, this does vary. I would say more so that's the average. Most successful campaigns that we've seen are going to be anywhere in 60 to 70%. However, some ICPs are not as responsive on email, or they're super busy, or a ton of people are already emailing them. Okay, like SaaS. SaaS is a huge one. Everyone is just reaching out to SaaS companies, right? Sometimes it can be harder in certain industries to get a good open rate in that 60 to 70 range. So it depends. This is average. If you're below 20, you're probably in spam. 20 to 40, again, you might just be in a tough ICP. So generally 40% plus is where you want to be. Now, if you're in spam, by the way, there's almost a couple of things that you should be doing here. One is making sure that you're following the correct infrastructure right off the bat when you're doing an email campaign, right? How many email addresses that you should have per domain, the volume. You should be following all those best practices. And then also what we do to not only prevent going to spam, but the backups in case something does happen, is having those backup emails, those backup domains, so you can swap out if need be, so you have little to no downtime. Now, because our infrastructure is correct, our messaging is relevant, we haven't had a spam issue in a super, super long time. But if you're just starting off, you might have an issue with that. Just make sure you're following the correct infrastructure. All right, so response rate. Response rate can tell us a lot. Okay, so if we're having a high open rate and no one's responding, look, something's wrong with your messaging, something's wrong with your copy. It's not the template usually. It's usually not the template. What it is that the juiciness inside that email. It's probably not relevant to the ICP. Right? If no one's responding, it's not clear. It doesn't touch on the ICP's pain point. The pain point doesn't mix in with your solution, your offer. It's messy. You got to clean it up. And you might actually have a deeper issue, which is not just a copy, but the understanding of the ICP that you're going after, Or do you even know who the ICP is? Or are you just emailing anyone you think you could get a meeting with? Because if you don't know how to solve your ICP's problem and you don't understand your ICP or their problem, you don't deserve a meeting with them. So you might need to go back and actually like work on that, which is a way deeper problem. But if you do, if you have like years of experience with the company, you just might need to clean up the copy a little bit just to make sure it's a little bit more relevant to that ICP to get that response rate up. Now, from that response rate, 4% plus, out of like a 4 to 5% response rate, and this is excluding out of office, let's take total contacts. Total contact positive response rate should be like 1 to 2%. It should be 1 to 2%. That's positive. Not everyone asking for a meeting, but at least a positive response rate. Some people might be asking like more information, some sort of deck, right? Those are all included inside of there. So now let's actually classify the types of responses. If you're getting a high response rate, that 4% plus, and honestly it should be higher than 4%, but that's like that bare minimum. Let's classify the responses now. And if they're not positive, there's only a couple different types of responses that they can be. People telling you no, market intelligent no's, those are going to be in a similar boat, and I'll explain a bit. Or just totally off, where it's like, we don't handle this, I don't handle this. So let's start with that one. If a bunch of people have responded to you saying, I don't handle this, and that's like majority of the responses that you are getting, you might have the ICP wrong. Like the title might be wrong that you're targeting. So there's a couple ways to fix this. At the end of your email sequence, you could ask, hey, first name, can you do me a huge favor and point me to the person that handles this issue? And like, don't just say this issue, like actually say the problem that you solved there. And then track the titles that you get forwarded to or that you get referred to, right? Because if people keep saying like, I don't handle this, and then you ask them if there's anyone within the company who might handle this, and you keep getting pointed to the CFO, yeah, like maybe start targeting the CFO next week. You know what I mean? And that's huge too for the company in general, like your company, of finding out who that real ICP is. But also too, like that's literally your prospect, who you thought was your prospect, is now telling you who the actual prospect is. That's so valuable. And look, I know everyone wants meetings, but you can't get meetings if you don't know your ICP. If you don't know your ICP, who you thought was your ICP can tell you who that is, right? So that's how you optimize it. Take those learnings and implement that for the following week. Don't just sit on your hands and let the campaign go and say email doesn't work. Now, no's. If people are saying just no to you, there's a couple different things that you can do. You can try getting a little bit more relevant with your offer based off their situation, recent role change. This one's kind of overused, but yeah, I mean, relevancy sometimes can change around. If someone's replying no, sometimes they've really taken that time to read the email that you sent them. It's just not relevant to them at that time. So even just diving a little bit deeper of like, is it just not the right time? Like, what could it be just for my personal like benefit, just so I know and I can improve my campaign? So that way you can really get a better understanding of that market intelligence if they're not already giving it to you. You can adjust copy as well to make it a little bit more urgent and enticing, but I think the best place to start there is getting the intelligence from a no to really understand why they're saying no. And then from there, tracking the trend and fixing it. Market intelligent no's, these are actually really great. I love these because like they're telling you no, but why no? And like analyze that. If you're getting 40 responses of people saying no and telling you why, you better be tracking those trends and understanding why people are saying no. Because you can use that as a feedback loop to then improve your campaign for the following week, right? So look, if you're getting a high response rate, but they're all like, let's call them bad responses. I don't really think there's a bad response unless someone is like F off, which will happen sometimes. That's a bad response. But like these ones are not. They're just telling you what needs to be done to optimize the campaign. All right, so let's say that you're getting that 1-2% positive response rate. Awesome. Great. Like you're getting positive replies. Now you have to make sure that you're booking at least half of those. And honestly, you should be booking more than half of them. But this just goes back to the overall KPI goal of a 0.5 to 1% conversion rate of qualified meetings. So again, that 5 to 10 out of 1,000 contacts a month. You need to make sure that you're getting at least 50% of positive responses being turned into booked SQLs. And if it's a pretty low conversion rate, like even lower than 50%, I think the best solution is just to pick up the phone and call them as soon as you get a positive response. Like if you have such a low booking rate, pick up the phone and start calling them once they give you a positive response. You're gonna have a easier time booking them at that point, and also too following up. Like that's a pretty like straightforward one. You should be following up anyways when someone gives you a positive response but they don't book. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to remind you about it, of following up on top of their positive response to get them to that next step. So if all else fails, there is a solution in place, which is getting more market intelligence. So let's say like you have a good open rate, deliverability is good, but like response rate's still pretty low, and everything that we're getting is either no or market intelligence. One of the best things to do is actually just increase the volume a little bit of your campaign with a heavy focus on gaining market intelligence, not selling, but gaining market intelligence. Okay, like people are giving us feedback, but we need more. We need more data. So look, if you increase the volume from there, if you increase volume, you're going to get more data, more feedback, and then your feedback loop is just going to be larger, more effective, and then you're going to be able to have a better campaign going forward from that data. So sometimes if all else fails, increasing volume to collect more market intelligence is ideal. Now for the fun part, it's like, look, if you're booking 0.5 to 1% amount of the cold leads and the 0.5, 1% are SQLs that you're booking in, gotta make sure you're at least closing. I mean, look, depending on the industry, maybe like 10%, but 20% is that average, right? Like, yes, the KPIs are that the main KPIs, like I was saying, is 0.5 to 1%, but big picture is revenue. Bigger picture is profit. Okay, your cost per SQL, cost per closed deal, like everything lines up. This has to be optimized too, because like it's great that, whoa, we optimize a campaign to book a bunch of meetings, but we have to take a step further. Again, this is another feedback loop. We have to take a step further to say, are they closing? If not, what is the issue? And that's a whole nother process of like optimizing the sales process as well, especially from booked meetings coming in from outbound rather than referrals or inbound. So yeah, I mean, you have to make sure that they're closing. You have to make sure that it's profitable. And this can be used as a feedback loop too, because you could book 30 meetings in a month and only 5 of those are qualified. That needs to be like, again, that feedback loop going back to something's up with targeting. Like something's wrong with targeting, something's wrong with the messaging. You need to go through this again to understand why that is happening. It's a good sign. That doesn't mean, oh, it just doesn't work. They're not qualified, it doesn't work. No, it just means like you need to go back and understand, why are we getting unqualified meetings? So yeah, look, also I have in here fractional sales leader. That's huge as well. Look, if you're getting a lot of SQLs booked, they are qualified and you're just not closing them, let's get a process going. Like get a sales process in place. You know what I mean? Like you're paying the money to generate SQLs. You are generating SQLs. Awesome. Now, if we just pay a little bit more money and a little bit more time to build out a process, you're going to make a lot of money. Fortunately, some people decided to say, oh, we're not closing anything. We're getting SQLs, but it's not profitable. We're done. Give it a month, 2 more months. Like it'll be good, right? So look, this is our red zone process. I hope it helped. Let me know if you have any questions.